Audubon volunteer for 7 summers now, starting with hummingbird banding and eventually being invited to help with other projects. My passion for birds began at the early age of 9 months old and has steadily grown over the years. I began my photography journey after receiving my first camera 9 years ago and combined it with my love for birds to better learn to identify them. Tonight, I will be sharing a story of my summer with the local tree swallows that breed here during the summer. We begin the project by putting boxes up early in April as the snow begins to melt and the ground is thawing. The tree swallows usually arrive mid-April and begin looking for nest sites right away. We set up boxes at Mendenhall Peninsula, Sunny Point, Kingfisher Pond, Twin Lakes, and Fish Creek over on Douglas. When the male tree swallows find a suitable nest site and claim it, he will furiously guard the territory, chasing or fighting away rivals. Unmated females are welcome to check out the site. If she approves, they team up and begin building a nest. Tree swallow nests vary in size. Some nests are so tall they reach the entry hole in the box. Others are so small it seems they've forgotten to build the bottom of the nest. Some swallows only put 2 feathers in their nests, and some put so many feathers in there you can't see into them. And then we have this one. Our best guess was that the couple was inexperienced. The female, at least, was a first-year female by plumage. One day there would be a couple pieces of grass in the box. The next, it would be just the eggs. In the end, the 2 eggs they laid never hatched. As the nest building continues, the wetlands transform from dead and brown to lush and green. Our nest box sites are wildlife hotspots, hosting a wide range of wildlife, including many species of birds, flowers, mammals, insects, and even amphibians. The first flowers to bloom are the marsh marigolds pictured in the lower right-hand picture. The shooting stars in the picture above bloom soon after. Deer are a common sight at the Mendenhall Peninsula site, and they must hang around the Fish Creek area, though we never see them. The bears on the left were seen as we were driving by Lemon Creek after checking boxes at Fish Creek. We saw a lot of them in the area this year. Luckily, they weren't in the Kingfisher Pond area while we were there. As April continues, more avian migrants began to move in. These are violet-green swallows. On this particular day, there seemed to be more of them than the tree swallows. They covered every tree branch and tree stump, and still there were some flying around above. They, like me, did not seem to be enjoying the rain all that much. First completed nest was found May 3rd. Like the last 2 years, the Mendenhall Peninsula site had a good head start. Our next task will be to count the eggs as they are being laid. "17 days later, the first egg, 17 days after the first egg had, 17 days later, the first egg had been laid. Tree swallows usually lay 5 to 6, though 7 is not uncommon. If you count the eggs in the nest in the upper left picture, you'll see there are 8 eggs in that one. This is very unusual. We have not yet determined if 2 females have laid their eggs in the nest or if the couples were just very productive. This occurred twice this year, as it did last year too. Tree swallow eggs are very tiny, about the size of the end of your finger. Incubation begins after the female has laid all her eggs. We try not to open boxes during incubation, as this may scare or discourage the adults, causing them to give up and try again elsewhere. Sometimes it is hard to know if they've laid all their eggs. They may lay as few as 1 or as many as 7. So far, we have not been the cause of the swallows abandoning their nests. Usually when we accidentally open a box, the swallows on the nest give us a dirty look and won't move. While the swallows are sitting on eggs, we watch the other swallows catch bugs, fight to the death over the largest stuck feathers, and preen from atop a tree stump. We also get the chance to watch and listen to other wildlife in the area. I put together a list of 68 different species of birds we saw and or heard this year while in the field. I could list them all here, but I have a time limit, so I'll just list off the more interesting species. Among other species of sandpipers we saw on the Mendenhall Peninsula site, the long-billed dowitchers were one of my favorite with their bright rust-colored plumages. At Sunny Point, we saw a pair of rusty blackbirds, an uncommon sight in the Juneau area. A red-headed duck hung around the Kingfisher Pond site for a long time this summer. He seemed quite interested in a female mallard. At the Kingfisher Pond site, we saw western wood pewee. I saw 4 of these flycatchers that day. Usually, I only see or hear 2. A pair of blue-winged and green-winged teals stuck around the Mendenhall site for much of the summer. Where one pair went, the other would follow. American robins are a common sight all over town. This one perched in a tree up close, allowing for a very nice photo. Cedar waxwings are a rare find for me. I was very excited when I heard several as we were leaving the Mendenhall Peninsula site one day. I was even more excited when one showed itself. Some other interesting species I saw this year include my first osprey, Townsend solitaire, and whimbrels, as well as a dark morph red-tailed hawk and an Anna's hummingbird. As the incubation period drew to a close and the chicks were nearing hatching, the wetlands had turned green and the grass had reached new heights, with the taller flowers taking the place of smaller flowers. About 20 days after the first egg was laid, that very nest was now filled with 5 healthy chicks. When the chicks hatch, they are completely featherless and blind. They start from the size of their eggs and triple in size over the course of 3 days. From the top down, left to right, this is the age progression of the chicks from day 1 to day 15. These are all pictures of different nests. We do not check the same box day after day. Once the chicks have hatched, the adults become very defensive. Depending on how busy they are collecting food or chasing off rivals, they will dive at us in an attempt to chase us off. Sometimes they will call in the entire colony, forming a swarm and taking turns diving. This year I noticed they seemed more defensive at the Fish Creek site than at other sites. After 3 years on the job, I finally got a video of the swallows diving at us. Hopefully you can hear their sharp mob calls. While the chicks are growing, so is the grass. By June, the grass at Fish Creek is taller than us, well over 5 feet. The swallow boxes are set up at about 5 feet, and Brenda and I are not much taller. This makes it difficult to navigate from box to box. At 2.5 weeks, the chicks are fully grown and ready to fledge. They look just like their parents, except they still sport a gray plumage and yellow beaks. At this time, opening the boxes can be a bit dangerous. If the chicks are not ready to fly yet and they hop out while the box is open, it can be a hassle to get them back in. I opened a box this year and one jumped out and into the grass at my feet. After a struggle, Brenda and I managed to get the reluctant chick back into the box, only to watch it fly out the entry hole a second later with no problem. I guess he'd had enough of his siblings sitting on his head. The first chicks to fledge left the nest July 8th. The last ones fledged 10 days later. Once fledged, the chicks may stick around their parents for about another week before venturing out alone, likely not straying too far from the colony until it is time to migrate. For the majority of birds, at least around here, migration begins mid to late August as the fireweed begins to produce seed. As the swallows prepare to leave, we begin to take down the empty boxes, pulling out old nests and cleaning up the boxes to be used again next spring. Then we compile our collected data and compare it with the data of years past to see how well our swallows are doing. This marks the end of the season. I would like to give a big thank you to the people who supported me throughout the years, including my family, friends at Juneau Audubon, and the local and non-local birders. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, are there any questions?
Hey, Jessica, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you show us the slide again of the chicks development? You went through that kind of fast and it's just so awesome. We should all look at it again.
Thank you. Can you see it?
Yes. And I have another question. You said you had a couple 8 eggs or 9 eggs nests. What was the most crowded box? What's the most chicks you've had and fledglings you've had in a single box?
I think the ones with 8 eggs actually all fledged this year. All 8 of them.
Wow, that's amazing. I just wanted to say, Jessica, I think your photos, the way you've captured,